Hello, hello. Welcome everyone. I wanted to get on here. Excuse my voice. I've been battling a cold and a little bug that's been going around my whole house, so it won't leave me alone. But I had a word that I felt like I needed to send forth for all teachers, all educators out there who are working in the trenches every single day, making a difference in the lives of kids, doing the best that they know how, and especially for those who are believers in Jesus Christ, who are working in that profession. I just wanted to send this out to you, give you a word of encouragement, and just something to think about. I'm going to be referencing John 6, I believe it's 63. Check the title if I got the verse wrong. I'm better at knowing the word and not remembering the references. I think it's John 6:63. If it's not, check the title, please. But anyway, it talks about how the Spirit gives life, but the flesh profits nothing. My words are spirit and they are life. Amen. And so I need to just send this out. It's for teachers. I feel like this is for teachers. And so anyone who's worked with me before, my name's Chris Morris. I am the founder of Morrissey Model, and we use a kind of innovative approach that's kind of practical in a lot of ways to help really bring the spirit and bring life into your kids. That's the difference between this process and all the other, well, not all the others, but many of the other resources out there that people are doing. And I feel like I'm called by God and trying to be obedient as best I can to actually bring this to the world. And so please take this John 6:63 to heart and think about it for a minute. I'm going to teach a little bit. And this is an encouragement for those who are making the difference and making a ripple effect that's going to just be beyond anything that you could hope, ask, or think. You have no idea the difference that you're making in people's lives, and you might take it for granted. Don't do it. Don't do it. So John 6:63, it's the Spirit who gives life. And well, what is the Spirit? That's such a mystery, right? You hear it all the time. If you're in the church circles or in Christian circles, you always hear, oh, the Spirit, and it's kind of this vague sense of a force out there. It's not a force. So much of when the Spirit is moving, and the Spirit is life, if you are a Christian, if you're spiritually minded, you believe that the Lord spoke the world into existence. Okay? So when the Spirit goes forth, it literally is done through spoken words. That's why words are so important. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. That's because the spirit of life or the spirit of death, God's spirit, Satan's spirit and his forces, they go forth through words primarily. So the words that we use coming out of our mouths to our students are so important. And it kills me that people just act like it's a trivial thing and it's not important. That's the most important thing that you should have on the forefront of your mind when you go into work every single day, is what words am I speaking to my kids? Even something that you might say that's out of reaction. Oh, you drive me nuts. If you don't follow it up and let them know and communicate that you care for them, and they don't know that you are for them and you're not building them up, that can be very damaging. And so it's about relationship, of course, centrally, but spirit goes forth, whether for good or for evil, through words. And so my spirit is life, and the flesh profits nothing. What does that mean? The flesh is your efforts. All the efforts that you're trying to do. I know you got the district's putting pressure on you, your principal puts pressure on you, you have all these things to do, and you can try to just really get stuck in that cycle where you're just putting forth all this efforts in your flesh. That means in your own strength, by the way, your own efforts to just do it right. And maybe you're a teacher out there who, you're very type A and you want to do everything by the book, and you're trying everything in your own strength to do what they tell you to do, and you're wondering why it's not working or why it's not nearly having the effect it needs to. Maybe you're operating completely out of the flesh, and it's profiting nothing, and it's definitely profiting our kids nothing. You cannot do this job, and what this country needs in our classrooms aren't teachers who just do what the rules say for you to do and go through the check boxes and make it all about the subject that you're teaching. The kids aren't going to remember that, 90% of them anyway. Not after a few months or a few years. They're going to remember how you were in their room, in their life, and what you said to them and how you treated them. But the Spirit, it follows up by saying, it follows up by saying, my words are spirit and they are life. And so specifically people who are Morrissey Model clients of mine, you know that we use certificate awards to actually recognize character, and in that you build up the kid with your words. You tell them, hey, thanks so much for putting forth that effort to actually stay awake last week when I know that you usually take 3 naps, but you didn't. You only took 1 nap last week, right? Well, you took the time to say that to them. You said, I appreciate you, and you're coming along, and you can do it. I know you can. Next thing you know, you're speaking the breath of God into that kid. There's an actual spiritual transaction that's happening, and my words, the Lord says, are life. My words are life. And so you're breathing life into that kid. You don't know what they're going through, and the very fact that you wrote out those encouraging words when they weren't expecting it on that certificate that we made for you with our business, and we showed you how to do, they're going to hang on to that, and that's going to mean more to them than you realize. And some of your kids, I'm telling you right now, what you do by taking this seriously, even if you don't feel like it, and writing out the awards and writing out life, words that are uplifting to your kids, writing out life, that is going to be the difference between a kid who does or does not commit suicide one day. They're going to pull that out. They're going to hang on to it for a long time. I've had so many students over the years who I found years later who could pull out their award that they got in my class, and they said, yeah, I look at it every day. I keep it in my wallet all the time, and it means something to them. Like, who does that? Well, you made an impact on them, and it's something that lasts. The words, especially written down, where someone can reread it all the time when they're feeling low and they need a reminder, and life's rough, right? It's going to come at some point where you don't know how you're going to get through the day, and the words that somebody said to you at the right time are the things that are going to get you through those moments. And you gotta speak uplifting things to your kids. And so another thing I wanted to share with you guys is the concept to kind of explain to you how this model, and you doing this and being diligent to do it every week, how it actually affects things in the spirit. So David, right? Everyone knows David and Goliath. They hear the story over and over and over. Well, something that came to me this past week that I wanted to share, something to think about, is David took out Goliath. He took out that giant. He took it out with a sling and a stone. 1 sling, 1 stone. From what I read, he just slung it once. So 1 stone, 1 sling. Anybody at that time, if you were to tell them that I'm going to go up against this mammoth-sized giant that everyone was scared of, that had, people had swords and shields and all kinds of advanced weaponry for the time, and his answer was, I'm just going to use a sling and a stone, is going to laugh at you. What I want to tell you is your awards, which aren't just awards, those words that you're going to write down in that moment that you're going to establish a connection with that kid, and you take the time to make their moment really stand out to them, and when you're going to build them up, that is your sling and your stone. The giant is going to come down. The giant of shame, the giant of, I'm not good enough, or whatever it is, self-esteem. Those giants that are in the way between the kid and his future, and the kid and his education, and the kid and just life in general. Your awards, your certificates, that moment where you're writing out basically a note, and you're establishing that connection, you're building them up, and you're saying, I'm proud of you, way to go, I noticed this, and you being diligent to actually place that in their hands, in front of their kids, in front of their peers, really. That is your sling and your stone as a teacher, that you take down those giants of shame, you take down those hindrances excuse me, that are in the way. See, I'm fighting it. Those hindrances that are in the way of you connecting with that kid and actually doing something that is going to impactfully affect them their whole life. It is. So Romans 6:63. Hey baby, it's my little daughter. You want to look at her? I'm doing a Facebook Live encouraging teachers to continue and war up and do the process and keep their perspective right. That's Eden. She's awesome. She went away. Anyway, so Romans 6:63, the spirit is life, the flesh profits nothing. So all the things you're doing, don't get so caught up in what you have to do as a teacher and forget to to sow life into those kids. It'll come back to you. But the important thing is that's what's going to change the dynamics and the things that are needed in America. When you speak life, there's an actual spiritual transaction that takes place, and God is getting in there, and life is happening, and it's going to pick them up, and they're going to be able to push through and have, have a motivation and an inspiration to really give it their all that they did not have before you did that. It actually is real, even though it's not something that's as tangible as you might be used to. Okay? So take your sling, take your stone. That's your awards. Sit down and think of that kid that has actually had a breakthrough, and take the time to write out whatever it is that you're going to say to uplift that kid, because that is what is going to sow the breath of God. That is what's going to bring life into your classroom, into the hearts of those kids. And when the tough times come, they're actually going to remember that and be able to push through, make better decisions, and in some cases make a life-saving decision that they wouldn't have done otherwise if you hadn't taken the time to do that. You're going to take down those giants today in the name of the Lord, but you're going to use your sling and your stone. So don't forget that the Lord uses the foolish things of this world. He uses the weak things to shame the wise, and the things that just don't seem like they would do anything or have any effect, and just to flip it on those who think they're wise. It's all scriptural. And so this is just a truth that I wanted to try to convey to those who are using our process, to those who maybe aren't using our process but just need some encouragement. Speak life. When you love people through your words, you are literally breathing the life of God on people, and you'll be amazed the things that'll happen. I'll share this one story just because I'm on a roll. And by that I mean I'm talking a lot and I can't stop. Not that I'm really on a roll. Anyway, so I can't remember the girls' names, but I had these two girls a number of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and they were actually acting really badly in my classes. They were talking back. They just uncharacteristically were being really rough on me, and it was tough to deal with. So I told them, I said, look, we need to understand something. If you continue to do this, I'm going to write you up. And you're probably going to get in-school suspension or some other disciplinary measure that administration decides, right? But before I finished saying that, I said, look, this is actually an act of love that I do that, because it's an act that I'm doing to show you correction. You're on the wrong road, and I want you to get on the right road. So to do that, it's a way of loving you in all actuality. They looked at me like, that's loving? I'm like, yeah, because instead of letting you go towards destruction, I'm correcting you so that you make better decisions and head towards life. And they're like, oh, really? And I went, yeah. So shape up your behavior. A few moments go by, I'm going back to teaching. They start talking back and cutting up again. I said, hey, I'm going to love you. And I pulled out my referral and I wrote them up. And I said, ISS for 4 days. And I put it on my desk, and they just kind of looked at her like, I can't believe this, right? Well, they didn't fight me as much as I thought they would. Normally they talk back after I try to do something disciplinary. And they actually took the punishment with grace, and they didn't fight back. So I went ahead and I used that example as a Morrissey Award, which is what I called mine, a Morrissey Award that I gave them, like an Academy Award in the middle of class, and I wrote out what they did. I said, hey, you took the punishment and you didn't fight me back on it. You accepted it. I think you understood there was some truth behind what I said about how this is an act of love. And I like the way you responded. And so there was an award that I did for those girls just based on how they responded to discipline, which is a huge way of conveying character that isn't really in our schools from what I've seen. And so just to show you the truth of this life that was spoken in that moment, I was a teachable moment. When you're giving people truth that's life-giving, I think God is doing a transaction where something's happening, where understanding's happening in the heart of those kids. Well, a couple days go by, I'm not thinking much of it. They've been out of class for a number of days because they have ISS, because I wrote them up. They come find me at one of the school's pep rally events or some fundraising thing. It might have been a school-wide dodgeball game. And they each came up giggling, handed me a note, and then ran away. I open up the notes, and in the note it says, Dear Mr. Morris, thank you for the love. We appreciate that you actually wrote us up and sent us to in-school suspension because we know we deserved it, but we know it wasn't because you were being mean, but because it was actually a show, showing us love in that moment, and we appreciate it. We love being in your class, something along those lines. Couldn't believe it. that response from actually writing a kid up and disciplining them had never happened before. But that's the difference, I believe, in actually sowing life into your kids through processes that just haven't really been done in our schools in the past. And so keep that in mind. Keep doing what you're doing. You are the difference. You're standing in the gap for a generation beneath you, and you don't know the impact will have made when it's all said and done. But remember Romans 6:63. The flesh profits nothing. Your works and your efforts, but that even in large ways, the subject you're teaching might not be remembered very much longer, but you taking the time to breathe life into them, to speak life, to actually give them something tangible that has something that they can hold on to, that encourages them, that is an actual spiritual transaction that takes place, and it actually gives them the ability to have life and to have that and I know that this is a truth that some people need to get today, even if it's just a few. I don't care. Okay? So remember, take your sling, take your stone. That's your Morrissey Award template, right? Use it. Take down Goliath. It is not a small thing. It's mighty in the Lord in the hands of those who wield it. So be encouraged. Kaylin, if you see this, or you might be teaching right now, please share it with your friends who teach. Lauren, I know we're Facebook friends too, one of my clients. Share this with those. Ozzy Brito, shout out to you, one of my first clients, and many other people. Eden, yeah. What do you need, baby? You're on live. Say hi. Hi. You got a little runny nose. But God's going to take care of that too. All right? So we love you. I love you. I want you guys to really keep your mind focused on the kids. It's about the main thing, right? I think Miss Becky Brown, thank God for her. Becky Brown is the principal at Westwood. Shout out to you. She used to always say, it's about the main thing or it's about the wrong thing. Well, the main thing are the kids. So everything you're doing throughout the day, if you're not keeping them first, and I look at doing these awards for your kids as a way to actually intentionally put them first before you do anything else, they're going to pick up on it. They're going to have life. Your life is going to be easier at your job, I promise. And it's something that is much needed in this generation. Please come talk to me if I haven't heard from you in a while. I'd love to catch up. I want you to have as much success as possible. I love you. I'll see you again soon. Bye.